I've had an on-again, off-again relationship with KDE Plasma since about 2009. Back then, KDE 4 was almost a vision of what Windows Vista and what Windows 7 could have been. It was smooth, it was blurry, it was translucent, it was elegant, it was new. It had a lot going for it. It was so freaking customizable and powerful that it took the KDE 3 functionality to a whole new level of aesthetic wonder. But the visual panache came at a cost, and it gained a reputation of being somewhat bloated and crufty, as ironically enough, Windows Vista and Windows 7 soon went on to have as well. Now, when KDE Plasma 5 rolled around in 2015, I gave it a largely very positive review, as they'd managed to iron out a lot of the bugs and kinks and resource cruftiness of KDE 4. They'd flattened out the shapes, all of the colors were bolder, there was sharper angles, it was very functional, but they had managed to strip it into a lean, mean fighting machine. Now, ever since 2015, KDE Plasma has been on the up and up. And in the last 12 months especially, there's been a groundswell of support for this desktop environment being the best that money can't buy. So today, after running Plasma 5.21 on KDE Neon for the last 30 days, I'm taking a deep dive into everything that I love about, everything that I've learned from, and everything that I wish for the KDE Plasma desktop. But before we deep dive right in, a quick word from those who have made today's video possible, NordVPN. If you're watching this video, you probably love the internet, you love Linux, and you understand the importance of privacy. That's why NordVPN is one of the best choices that you can make to secure your internet traffic, access geo-restricted content, and enjoy the freedom of the global internet without the hassle of slow servers or poor platform support or expensive plans. One of the things that I'm particularly excited about with NordVPN is Nord Links. Their relatively new VPN protocol built with our open source darling WireGuard and then NordVPN special source to create a performant, secure, and anonymous internet access, complete with a strictly zero logs policy and a 30-day money-back guarantee. Well, they've got support for basically every platform out there, including system-wide Linux support, and easy browser extensions if you just want to hop on the web quickly. So go and check out NordVPN and sign up with the link in the description below, and be sure to use the code InfinitelyGalactic at checkout to get their special birthday offer of 70% off a 2-year plan, plus 30 days free, plus a bonus birthday gift. So basically, for the cost of one nice latte a month, you owe it to yourself to have fast and secure internet access wherever you are. So check out the link in the description, nordvpn.com/InfinitelyGalactic, and don't forget to use coupon code InfinitelyGalactic at checkout to get this special offer. And now, on to the deep dive. Alright, so we got a lot to get through. Check out the timestamps down below if you want to jump to a specific section of this deep dive, but it could be a long one. Forewarned is forearmed. I don't know how that saying goes. Okay, let's get on with things. So, first thing I want to talk about is in Plasma 5.21, which came out about a month ago from the time of the recording of this video. I'm going to go through some of the things that were new to this release and my thoughts on them, how they've changed my perception of Plasma and the workflow and that kind of thing. First things first, the application launcher. This application launcher is a much more logical, I don't know, it fits the way my brain works compared to Kickoff and the simple menus before that. Now, it's not everyone's taste, and that's fine, but I think for most people, for what we're used to and what we expect from desktop environments, I think it's great. It ergonomically makes sense on multiple monitor sizes. Whether you're on a tiny laptop screen, you can kind of shrink it down, but if you're on a big desktop display, it also looks completely in place. The other thing is that it's a much more touchable menu, if that makes sense, and for a lot of the two-in-ones out there that do actually have pretty decent touchscreen support under Linux, it's great to see that this menu makes better sense for those kinds of people. Also, the quick session controls down here are amazing. The older launchers are still available, and you can use the show alternatives button to switch between them, and then you can also add older menus back from the KDE Plasma Add Stuff panel, which we'll get into that more later. Also, the other thing that I really like about it is that I love the fact that you get these really specific descriptions of each of the apps. So they're alphabetized, but then on the side, you get a really clear description about what each of these apps is. Great discoverability tweak there, and I think it gives the apps and it makes the apps make a lot more sense, especially to new users, which I think is very important. Okay, let's talk about application theming. Now, this is something where the Breeze theme, the theme that is native to the Plasma desktop, has been evolving for a few years now. What I like about what they've done with Plasma 5.21 is they've tidied up the window controls and where the header bar, which is this top menu bit here or the top of the window that you grab, and also the bit underneath the window. Now, they've also tidied this up with some GTK apps as well, so that the theming looks more consistent no matter what widget set the app is built on. The window controls and overall theming looks decent under whether you're using Flatpak, Snap, app images, or native apps from the repositories, which is really nice. I think there's been a lot of effort gone into visual consistency between the Qt 5 framework, which is basically what the KDE Plasma desktop is built on. A lot of the apps are built on, the widget set that they are built on. And also that making that theming work with GTK apps, at least for the default Plasma Breeze style. So once you come into the global, the theming section in Plasma settings, you can come in here and you can change, obviously, the Plasma and then the application theme that you're running. And you've always been able to do this with Plasma. Plasma is amazingly configurable. But something about the way that they've kind of been able to flatten out some of the gradients and give really clear visibility to the main controls that you need, things like back and all the window control buttons, makes things really clearly visible. And also it leaves great room for using your own color scheme to kind of highlight your own personal take on the Breeze theme. And now also this does bring to mind the download new stuff dialog boxes, which KDE Plasma has had for such a long time, but they've sort of changed the layout of it a bit to make it a little bit more discoverable and a little bit more App Store-ish. And you can sort through these based on how well these color schemes are rated, among other things. So being able to add your own color scheme to Plasma has always existed, but it's great that the Breeze theme, I feel, is at a point where you can really take advantage of that well without the desktop looking out of place. Also, that begs to say that no matter what wallpaper you're running, you could probably still get a great result with the Breeze theme running. Now, of course, there are plenty of great Plasma themes out there, and I'm not going to get into that in this session, but the overall look and feel of Breeze is looking fantastic. Even these context menus look amazing. This is a small detail, but look at how great the alignment is of the icons, the fonts, and then the arrow keys off to the side and keyboard shortcuts. It is so neat. Also in Plasma 5.21, they enabled the Breeze Twilight theme, which I think Ubuntu was doing this for a few years. Basically, you get a dark Plasma widgets set. So you get a dark panel, and if you add any widgets to the desktop, they are also dark, but then the application theme itself is still light. Now, if we go to the global theme section that we were looking at before, you'll see there's Breeze, Breeze Dark, and Breeze Twilight. And you can kind of get a bit of a pickup there on what those look like. The other thing that I do want to mention is notification pop-ups, because this was a bugbear of mine with KDE Plasma for quite some time. First of all, the notification shade and the notification center was a bit disorganized. I'll get to that a little bit later. But also the position of notification pop-ups on the desktop and the way that those looked and that you could interact with them always felt too clunky for me. And now they do look a lot smoother. So as you can see, I have moved the default notifications from the bottom right to the top right, because that's just where I'm used to seeing them, I suppose. And the fact that you can come in here and configure granularly which applications you want to allow to bother you, and you can obviously enable Do Not Disturb, and you can even set that to automatically go to Do Not Disturb when your screen is mirrored. So if you're presenting off your laptop, for example, it will automatically not bother you with notifications, just so nothing embarrassing happens. And I think that's a good tweak. I want to move on to the system settings and talk about that in general. But before I do, make sure that if you are enjoying this content, then you definitely go click that subscribe button. We're chasing down 70,000 subscribers at the moment. We're getting pretty close. So every sub counts. Thank you for your support. So, system settings. System settings is an app that KDE Plasma has always excelled at, and they've gradually over the years been refining, tidying up, and consolidating a lot of these app categories, a lot of these settings categories, so that they make sense. In Plasma 5.21, they've added a configuring firewall section, which can enable or configure a firewall based on a number of different backends, which I think is great to see. The more consolidation that you can have with your system all under one system settings panel is amazing. The other thing I want to point out here is searchability. The fact that you can use either KRunner, which incidentally, KRunner on the Plasma desktop is one of the greatest keyboard shortcuts that ever lived. The fact that I can come in here and just search DPI and it can hotlink me straight through to the configuring the fonts in system settings is amazing. And this level of discoverability makes sorting through these system settings so much better. I dare say this is probably one of the most comprehensive system settings panels or system settings apps in computers right now, because Windows is still split across the new system settings and control panel. Mac OS seems to be taking more and more settings away from the user. The fact that we have this many settings and this discoverable in a coherent desktop environment, I think is nothing short of amazing. It would be great to see, especially with Wayland, as the Wayland support for trackpad gestures with lib input is very, very good. It'd be great to see some of those settings make their way into Plasma system settings. Now, this is not a new feature for Plasma 5.21, but it's been around since the last time I was living in Plasma, and that was the button here that highlights change settings. So anytime you come into KDE system settings and you change something and you want to change it back and you don't remember where it was, you can just say highlight change settings and it will let you know what was the last thing that you tweaked. Excellent stuff. Now, rumor mill is turning that apparently we will get to the point one day very soon where you will be able to export your Plasma system settings configurations and be able to import them onto a new system. So everything that you've customized through system settings will eventually be able to be transported from one system to another. And I think that is dope. So that's just a rumor mill at this point, but it would be great to see if that becomes a thing. Okay, let's talk about applets. Applets are my term, I guess, or the industry's term for little bits of code or little applications that can do certain things on the desktop. So when I'm talking about applets here on KDE Plasma, Plasma has always been known for its amazing library of widgets and being able to add cool stuff to panels and desktops alike to give you glanceable information or quick controls over the things that matter to you. Now, this time around, I want to highlight a few key things. First of all, when it comes to browser integration with YouTube, for example, and you start playing a video, the level of desktop integration that we get now with KDE Plasma is really great. For example, with that window minimized, the playback keys on my keyboard will continue to work and enable that video to keep playing. But also, I have a little playback button living in the toolbar here. And it even goes a bit further than that. When it comes to the lock screen, I can actually control playback of the video from the lock screen as well. And depending on what kind of video I have playing, I can also sometimes get a thumbnail of what's playing as well. And then this maps to the handy dandy little media applet media player that you can drag onto the desktop. And as you can see, now I have a little thumbnail playback widget here living on my desktop that while I have a video playing on Firefox, I can control the playback.
Millions of people around the world.
This little window here. It's great if you're listening to YouTube podcasts or some other genre of YouTube video that doesn't really require you to be visually engaged with what's going on, but you still want to have control over the playback of that video. The sound applet is also amazing for people that work with a lot of inputs and outputs and need to be able to jump between them and change volume really quickly. This is something that I do a lot, and I wish that every operating system on the planet had this kind of control built into their sound applet. You can change the volume level of particular applications or devices. Tell me you can get that anywhere else. Also, this is an interesting little thing that I found. If you do 3-finger click on the desktop, you get a clipboard with a paste of the last thing that you highlighted. So in this case, I highlighted the opening recording of what you just heard in the opening of this video. And that is the last thing that I had on my clipboard. And so it will create a little sticky note on your desktop with the last thing that you had that you had highlighted or copied onto your clipboard. So not only do you have a clipboard manager that has everything that you have put into your clipboard, but if you middle click or if you 3-finger click with the trackpad on the desktop, it'll create a sticky note with that copied content. Very productive. Final thing I want to say about Applets is I think the layout of this tray is so much better than what it was even a year ago from what I remember. The fact that we have these much nicer, easier, and more spaced out tiles for the different things that can live on our notification tray is really nice. One criticism that I do have though is that the notification area for apps that are not like KDE Plasma aware, for example, OBS and MailSpring and Synology Drive here, are much closer together, and they're stacked much closer together than the rest of the Plasma widgets on the panel. It's a very small visual thing, but those things do add up. Now, the other cool thing that I just want to mention is that the ability to be able to pin any one of these applets to the desktop and have it stay up here running is fantastic. Say if I have a big file that's transferring or a download that's running or something like that, I can simply just bring up that panel, pin it there to the desktop, and that way it won't go away when I start navigating through elsewhere in the desktop, and it will stay on top. Again, amazing little productivity hack that very few other desktops give you. Once again, a really quick plug for KDE Connect. If you have never used KDE Connect, it is a fantastic piece of software that can help sync your Android device to your desktop to allow you to play back media, send SMSs, all that fun stuff. It's very, very awesome. Here's some of my sort of general thoughts about Plasma. The power and the resource efficiency that this desktop gives you without you having to install extra software or bits and pieces or extensions to be able to get the kind of power and efficiency that you need is amazing. And they have a rich ecosystem of themes and add-ons and extensions and widgets and all of this other stuff that has been built by the KDE Plasma community. It just has customization in spades over some of the other desktop environments, not only in the open source world, but in Mac and Windows as well. Wayland support continues to improve with Plasma 5.21, and it'll be great to see, and for me personally, I haven't jumped on the Wayland boat yet, but it's becoming very tempting to be able to jump onto the next generation of display managers, because X is probably getting a little bit long in the tooth at this point. Now, this is something that I'm going to speak briefly into the performance of what I've noticed. Now, your performance may vary, obviously, depending on your hardware and what OS you're running Plasma on top of. But for me, with KDE Neon 5.21, I have found categorically that the system hiccups less, especially window animations, the desktop's overall fluidity is less impacted by CPU intensive tasks than what I've found on GTK based desktops, GNOME and Budgie and Elementary and the like. And I don't know where to put this down to, whether it is a more efficient window manager or whether there's just less bottlenecking going on. I'm not really sure, but the performance of KDE Plasma 5.21 has been better in a number of different metrics for me personally, and overall system responsiveness has been better than what I've had over the last few years running predominantly GNOME. Okay, let's move on to application management, because this is something that that kind of blew me away that this is working as well as it is. Because the last time I used KDE Discover, which is the default software management service, it was a bit of a buggy mess. And by golly, it's neatened out. And not only that, but it manages the updates and multiple software backends seamlessly. So first of all, you go into settings and you can enable and disable certain software sources. Now, by default on KDE Neon, FlatHub and Snap, I think FlatHub is enabled by default, and you can add Snap just by checking the box. No other software manager that I am aware of that is attached to a desktop environment is capable of doing this. I don't know why, but this is amazing. The fact that I can get firmware updates, updates for the operating system, and updates for apps, both from Snap and from FlatHub, all without leaving the software management app, is nothing short of amazing. So when I'm sorting through applications, you do have little indicator icons as to where that app is coming from. You have the little icon for FlatHub, you have the one from Snap, You get a little magnet, I think, from Snap. And by default, it does seem to want to promote the FlatHub apps out of the box. You can change which software source you want it to show you first, but you can still install apps from those other sources if you so choose. This level of both presentation but also functionality built into the one app is amazing. Also, the updates seem to work really, really well. Reminds me a lot of the Elementary App Center, and it is working really well, like way quicker than I've experienced in the past. So I've been really impressed, and I've been running this now for a month, and it hasn't given me any trouble whatsoever. Just seems to be happy churning away, doing its thing, and I can still go back and look at other applications, and it all seems really stable. Okay, rapid fire. I'm going to stare at my notes so I can get through these in a timely manner. Okay, first of all, Ocular is one amazing PDF reader and annotation software. I use a lot of PDF stuff in my job. I'm a high school teacher, and being able to annotate PDFs is key. And being able to have a tool like this built into the KDE desktop is amazing. That goes for pretty much all the apps out there, except for a great video app. I don't know why KDE Plasma and Neon especially defaults to having VLC, apart from the fact that VLC is a tried and true media player. I wish Plasma had its own native media player that came by default. I ended up choosing Haruna Video Player, but it'd be great to see one installed by default. The other thing that I've noticed is that the KDE Neon with Plasma 5.21 gives me much better battery life out of the box. What I mean by that is on Ubuntu 20.04 and later, I usually have to use some pretty aggressive power management techniques that you can go and check. I'll put a link to the video that I made about that in order to get some decent battery life on my Dell XPS 9570. But in Plasma, out of the box, without me tweaking anything, I can get about the same battery life without tweaking anything. And I think that's amazing. So the other thing is that multi-monitor setups seem a lot more flexible to me, and the fact that you can preserve display configurations for different monitor setups is also really helpful. When you plug in a new monitor and you decide if you want it to be the primary display or if you want a mirror or whatever it is, it'll ask, do you want to preserve this for every time you plug this monitor in? So you can say yes or no, and the configuration that you get with that is really, really nice. Here are some tweaks that I personally have made. Apart from enabling Fusuma for these multi-finger gestures, I also had to enable the natural scrolling on the trackpad. Because it is not natural scrolling, and also you don't have tap to click. So those two things were one of the first things that I did. I also disabled the double click for the file management. And this is where if you're selecting anything on the desktop, if you do one click by default, that'll just open the file or the folder. So I didn't really like that. So I ended up going and just searching double, and it came up with the general behavior, and I could simply click on what I wanted a single click to do. And in this case, I just wanted to select. I've got 3 horizontal workspaces here, as you can see in the little horizontal workspace indicator down here below. That is there by default, by the way. And I also did tweak the fonts in the system from, I believe it was the Noto Sans font, that's just the regular Noto Sans, to, I changed it to the Noto Sans CJKHK, which I think is just a regional variant that's suited for other languages, but I just find it looks smoother and nicer, and I just prefer it. So that's really all I've done to this desktop. The rest is kind of vanilla, how it comes out of the box. And before we get out of here, I want to talk about my wish list for what I would hope to see out of Plasma in the future. First of all is a spacebar preview. I've talked about this in many videos, but Spacebar Preview is one of my key productivity hacks that I love on macOS. I can do it on Windows. I can do it on GNOME relatively easily, but it would be great to see this in Plasma. It being able to just hit the spacebar not only opens the app quickly and previews whatever file you want to do, but it also closes the app quickly. And when you're a video editor and you're constantly jumping between different files looking for the right one, being able to preview thumbnails, video, audio very quickly is killer. Also, it'd be great to see, with the fact that Plasma has an amazing global menu widget and amazing support for a bunch of different apps to use a global menu, it'd be great to see a heads-up display menu used in or available as a widget in the Plasma desktop. Now, I realize there are projects out there that do this, but they're all basically tied to GitHub pages that are semi-abandoned at this point. So it'd be great if that became an official thing. I already mentioned it'd be great to have gestures natively supported in KDE Plasma so that I don't have to set up for Zuma behind the scenes. And like I said, it'd be great to see a well-integrated media player to relieve the venerable VLC of its position here in KDE Neon as the default media player. I realize VLC is about to get an overhaul anyway, but that's beside the point. I do want to give a shout out to the wonderful work that Nate Graham has been doing, engaging with the community and communicating to everyone all of the amazing work that's going into the Plasma desktop at the moment. He seems to be able to provide a write-up summary of what's going on in the Plasma world really, really often. And it gives this sense of amazing momentum, and it gives a visible buzz around the Linux community every time KDE Plasma is working on something. The other thing is that desktop Linux distributions seem to be doing a great job of adopting Plasma really quickly with very few deal-breaking bugs. And this is key because it allows the user base to enjoy the latest Plasma goodies that the KDE team have to offer. Whether you're an Arch, Ubuntu, Fedora, OpenSUSE type person, you seem to be able to enjoy all those benefits nonetheless. So for me, at the end of this video and at the end of these 30 days, I'm sticking with Plasma for right now. And I'm starting to wonder to myself, why is GNOME the default desktop on so many of the major Linux-based operating systems out there? Despite the fact that Linux users, as a general rule, they err more on the side of power users than they do on being fans of minimalist, application-centric design. Plasma 5.21 is hands down the most feature-complete, resource-efficient, evolutionary, but powerful, somehow instantly recognizable desktop environment that there is. And getting used to this productive efficiency and customizable shell is going to be really hard to switch away from. Hey, Blaine here. Thanks for checking out the Infinitely Galactic project. Look, if you want to find more videos like this, then definitely go check out the channel, subscribe if you're new, turn on notifications, all that good stuff, and you can chat with me on Twitter @InGalactic. See you in the next one.